Firstly, thank you very much, Steve, for accepting my invitation and accepting to be on my show.
That's not a problem. Happy to do it.
So I thought to tell about you and the work that you are doing to my audience.
Okay.
So can you please introduce yourself?
Yeah, my name is Steve Key, and I'm in Canada. I'm a sort of semi-retired communications executive, spending the last 40 years working in the media and in media relations and corporate communications with a number of high-profile organizations.
Uh, so can you elaborate your work?
Well, I started when I went to college. I took a course in radio broadcasting. I had originally wanted to be, a radio disc jockey or a sportscaster. But the news bug bit me. I was able to work at a all news radio station in Canada called CKO. It no longer exists, but I was able to write and report and edit audio and really learn all aspects of what is a news story. From there, I spent 6 years there. It was a wonderful training ground. I went to work in the corporate communications world. Often former journalists will go into public relations, media relations, and I worked for 20 years for the Toronto Stock Exchange, which is Canada's largest market, where I was on the front lines of pretty well every major financial news event from 1988 to 2008. Everything from market crashes to the decline of large corporations to the after effects of the market from 9/11. You name it, I was there, and it was an exciting time. At 2008, after 20 years at the Toronto Stock Exchange, I decided I wanted to try something different, and I moved into the insurance space, where I was an assistant vice president of communications with Sun Life Financial, which is a global insurance company. And from there, I went to work at the Insurance Bureau of Canada. Now, that's an organization that is a trade association of property and casualty insurance companies in Canada, so that everything from home, auto, and business insurance, where I was their national spokesperson and really handled all the crisis management. So if there was a major weather-related disaster in Canada, I was sent on the front lines to deal with the media and talk to people who had been impacted. So whether it was a tornado or a hurricane or some major fire, I was dispatched into the area. I guess that culminated really in 2016 when a massive forest fire hit Fort McMurray, Alberta, and it was the largest natural disaster in Canadian history. And I was airlifted in there while things were still burning, and had to help people and explain the story, because insurance can be a very complicated topic. I left the Insurance Bureau in 2020, and I've worked as a communications freelancer, for lack of a better word, worked for a number of companies and organizations that knew what I brought to the table. And the last 2 years, I went back to my roots and worked in radio at a couple of radio stations in the Toronto area, where I was doing news again. So that's sort of my career in full cycle. So, I'm a person with lots of opinions, but, I'm always speaking on behalf of organizations or companies and trying to get to the bottom of what's there. So I try to take real complex issues and make them very simplified.
So working in insurance company and also in stock exchange and media relations, public relations, spending a lot of your lifetime in different fields. What you are today with this collection?
Well, that's a very good question. I think what it did for me is it broadened my horizon. It meant I needed to have a much more strategic view of the world and how you take very complex issues and you understand that at the end of the day, there's a customer like you and me at the other end that needs to understand and needs to have things explained to them in a plain and simple manner. We have many technology tools at our hands today that help us forecast the weather much more accurately or to disseminate information to large groups and numbers. But I never lost the fact that I was dealing with a person at the other end, and whether that was through the media or any other aspect, people get their news from a number of different sources, and reporters are trying to do their job by making sure that they are able to tell a story to their audience, and I'm trying to tell my story through those people to get to that audience. It's never easy. I mean, there are difficult days and it's challenging, and not everything you say is right, and not everything you say is what people want to hear. But if you're doing it with the best intentions and you're being truthful, even though it's bad news sometimes, you have to get that out. You can't be hiding things back from people because someone will find that out, and that's your reputation. You're only as good as your reputation. And I've always been a person that has protected my reputation carefully over the years.
So working in media communications, how your contribution impacted the listeners or the people who are watching you?
Well, I always tried to be, I think I had to understand where my role was in the large chain of events. I was a bridge, a conduit to bring the messages of the organization together to what people wanted to hear. So I would say that the real important thing to know is that because I was an information junkie and I could take in a lot of data and messaging and the whole thing and translate it out, I think the important thing was to be clear and concise. And, I think it's rooted by being I think I'm a fairly good writer. I think I speak very well, and I'm genuine. I don't try to mask anything. And as you gain experience over your career, you have a little bit more runway of what you can say and what you can do and what you can get away with. But I always answered my phone. I always answered my emails, texts, tweets. Over the years, that changed a great deal because social media really changed the focus of what we did. When I started in the communications business, what we called the traditional media, so newspapers, TV, radio, was up here, and social media was non-existent. Well, over time, that pendulum started to swing. And today, how you present yourself on social media is as important, if not more important, than in some of the traditional media. And I'm a student of communications. I mean, I've taught communications at colleges. I'm a frequent speaker to groups and organizations. And I always tell people that, we live in a world right now where it's so polarizing. People are either on the left or on the right, and we need more frank discussion in the middle so that people understand that there are always two sides to a story, and sometimes you have to put yourself in the shoes of the person you're speaking with and understand that this is the most important or the biggest challenge of their life, and that you have to show some empathy and be able to try to help. You can't answer every question. You can't solve every problem, but you can certainly be a listening ear to those people who need it most.
As a media person, as a person who worked in media communications, your experience is very, very big. You have spent a lot of your lifetime in this profession.
Yes.
Uh, and communication, you have worked in all the three types of communication mediums. You are writing, you are a writer, you are a speaker in radio, and you are presenting as a journalist in a visual medium. So
Yes.
three different communication mediums you have spent your life in giving the information that you have collected with your senses. And your work looks so diverse. You worked in different uh, uh, topics and you have presented the information. So, with that experience, today comparing that experience with the social media experience where information is a click away. So, how do you define this difference?
I think that the most important thing in any society is to have a wide and diverse media, and that someone who consumes that information uh, needs to be reading, watching, and listening to as much as possible. Anyone who gets all their news or information strictly off social media is making a huge mistake. There are organizations that spend a great deal of time and effort to make sure they tell a balanced story. And I found over time that there are a couple of problems in today's media. Number one, um, they tend to take their own editorial slant, especially in the United States, where you could look at Fox News being very right wing. You can look at CNN being more on the left side. In Canada, we're lucky because the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation, the CBC, is a very neutral organization. Some would accuse it of being more left leaning, but I find it gives a very balanced approach. I always think that Canadians have a much more global view of the world than Americans. Uh, Americans will probably challenge me on that, but I always think in the U.S. it's U.S. first and everybody else after. But Canada, we have a very unique country. We have been, for the last 50 years, been very open to immigration and building this country um, based on the people that come to this country. And everyone in some way or another has come to this country. My family was from an Irish background and came to this country in the 1920s and set up roots here when things were very difficult back home. In recent years, you've seen a large influx of people from different communities, and they come in and they're able to stay with their own communities if they want, but they're able to assimilate into society. And we are much richer for that. And I think that helps bring a much more balanced approach to things. So I probably have an understanding of what's happening in your country much more than, say, an American might, because that's how we get our information. And for people who really want to know, you can read and find out anything you want. So I like that global view. I like to be Canadian. I think that we are something special in the world, and I hope that never changes.
So, how technology today is helping countries to be interconnected and share information, and where we are going with this technology?
Look what we're doing right now. I mean, we're talking. You're in India. It's 6 o'clock at night. I'm in Canada. It's 9:30 in the morning, and we're having a chat that you're going to put out to an audience from people from right around the world. That's pretty amazing. Um, when I started in the media back in the 80s, uh, I worked on the typewriter and had to type everything out with carbon paper. Now you won't even have to even understand the challenges that went into that. I remember in the late 80s when the fax machine first came out, and I thought that was revolutionary because we didn't have to dictate things over the phone. We could just send a copy. And that moved into email, and that moved into the internet and all of these different aspects where things started to spring up so that you're as we can have a conversation as friends on a daily basis as if you're sitting right here with me. And that's amazing, because now you and what you're doing with your YouTube channel is pretty great. I mean, you seem to be a person who is seeking a different perspective and understanding the world that you live in. And that is something you should be commended for, because it shows me that you're enthusiastic and a go-getter for that. But two, it also shows me that, 20 years ago you couldn't have done this, and now you can, and that's amazing. And what 10 years down the road is going to be, I have no idea. When you're my age, I'd be thrilled to find out just what you can do, and continues, because I have two sons that are around 30 years of age, and one grandchild, another one on the way. But how they will grow up and the change that will be there for them. It's just amazing to think of what the future holds for us.
So today you are watching and you are observing different platforms where people are sharing information and communicating in the internet. It can be Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, any platform where pictures, videos, and the articles are being shared. And so, how a ordinary person can able to find the right information in this vast, wide knowledge?
I think it's incumbent on them to find really credible sources. I like Twitter because it's fast and easy, and it helps me identify trends or things that are moving. But I always go to then full sources to find that out. So I may go to the CBC, or I may go to the BBC, or I may go to one of the major networks in the US to try to get a bigger perspective on the story. I just don't look at what's on Twitter and say, that's the end of the story, I want more. In terms of Facebook, it's been a great way to Facebook. I think I got onto Facebook initially in like 2008, and it was a wonderful way to connect with people and friends and people I hadn't seen in years, and family members, and share updates with what's happening. Instagram is a similar platform, but it's a very visual platform. So, you're sharing photos and that, and you're going to follow people that you like and appreciate, and you want to feel a sense of closeness with them. But I think you also have to realize that, social media is a bit of a mirage. It's not always what it appears to be. And nothing that we do is ever as good as things appear to be, and nothing's really ever as bad. The last 2 to 3 years, when the pandemic struck, it forced a lot of companies to move away from a lot of the in-person, face-to-face meetings and office environments into an online platform. And that has been a struggle for many people. Mental health issues have been a concern because we're not meeting face-to-face. So as a society, while technology assists us to be better communicate or to reach people, nothing beats a face-to-face conversation, sitting down over a drink, having some laughs, going out somewhere, having fun. These things, while my world is at my fingertips, it's a crutch. I hate going out to dinner and watching people on their phones instead of talking to each other. I almost wish that you could have phone-free restaurants or something where, you get back to that, having a discussion. And I was at a restaurant the other day, and this family, two people and their three kids, and the three kids are all on devices at the dinner table. Like, they're young kids, like 9, 10 years old, but they're all behind screens. And I thought, when I was a kid, I was out at dinner, I was talking to my parents. This was our time. And I'm worried that technology has moved us away from the interpersonal relationships into what is almost impersonal relationships, surface relationships, and they're never as good.
So, as a information provided through different platforms, it can be writing or it can be audio or it can be video. Uh, what ethics or values that you uh, 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 put for yourself all these years in your life?
Well, a lot of that depends on the organization. They want to make sure that you're truthful, honest, law-abiding, and I think if you do your research and provide what you know is truth, you're always going to be fine. So ethically, over my career, yes, I've had areas where I've challenged. I haven't actually believed everything that I was being told, but I had to deal with all the best information possible. So I would be very careful with my wording, and I would put these little words in like, well, it could be, or it might be, or instead of it is. So you find you have that out that way, but I never ever intentionally went out of my way to lie to a customer or an audience because everything I wrote or put out, I truly believed in. And I think you have to be able to look at yourself in the mirror and say, am I holding true to my own ethical standards? And everybody's bar is at a different level, and mine is high because it's had to be. And I found too that when you are interviewed and you're on TV and you're on radio and you're on that people hold you to a different standard, so that I can't be looking like a fool or saying things out of place because it can come back to haunt me. And I wouldn't want that. So I tend to be very neutral. I don't get into arguments with people. I just try to be a conciliator. I try to bring things together rather than push things apart.
So, being in media communications, being in public relations, being a constant communicator, how this profession uh, impacted you as a human being?
I was born to be in this position. I was an information junkie as a child. I was a sponge for information. I read a lot. I'm very big on history. I love to write. I love to express myself. I was very creative. Um, so, some people are just born that way, and that's how I'm wired. And that's never going to change. I try to be relevant. I try to understand what the different generations are looking for. And I hope I can have a conversation with anybody because, I always find there's common ground, and it should always be common ground. You should never judge a book by its cover. You got to get in and read it.
And in what subjects you are great in?
I was very good in history. I was very good in English and very good in geography. These types of things. I can tell where things are on the map. I can tell you why, the what happened in the past, and while, it could impact what our future is. But those were I was not a math student. I was not very good at math. And I struggled with languages too. I speak some French, but not very well. I understand some Italian, but I don't speak. I can speak little bits because I had friends who were Italian. But I really wish I could speak multiple languages. I wish I wish I could, look at you with English. I mean, your English is great. So, I commend you for that. That takes you a long way.
And up to where your expressions reached in the world.
I have had people reach out to me from all over the world. So things I've done have been around the world. Um, we won a global communications award for our work in Fort McMurray. So that was recognized by not only here in Canada, but around the world in terms of communications. So I like to think that I do my job to the best of my ability, and I leave it for others to say how good or effective that is.
So how today's global communications are affecting the humanity?
The world is open. Not every place in the world, but the world is largely open. And people need to take a much more global view of what's happening. I need to understand some of the challenges happening in your country, across Europe, South America, to really understand. I mean, countries are huge trading partners in a lot of situations. The last year or so in the media, I've been, following a lot of what's happened in Russia and Ukraine, and understanding just what global impact that has had on supply chain issues and the peace and security of Ukraine and potentially Europe, and what that could mean for the rest of the world. So I think you need to be watching every corner of the planet to understand what could be happening next.
So have you changed yourself by taking the feedbacks of people who are receiving your expressions?
I always listen. I don't always agree, but I listen. And sometimes I change a little of my wording, or my perspective, or I'll research and find out what they're really talking about. So that helps me too.
So today, Elon Musk said that has been saying from years that every human has to have a platform or have an opportunity to say what they feel like. So this too much freedom is good or bad in media.
Well, remember a quote from the old Spider-Man movie: "With great power comes great responsibility." And you have platforms, you must use them wisely, and understand that you have no idea what you say or what you do could impact someone next door or around the world.
So what do you think people in different countries uh, uh, do you think that they are presenting themselves exactly what they are living their life in real world?
With certain countries, I think that your communications and media are suppressed. Some of the countries that block certain social media or information from getting in or getting out of the country, their state-run media, that can be dangerous. But people who are resourceful will always find a way around that.
Geologically, different countries have benefits of different resources that I'm sure in your experience you have observed, you have presented the information regarding different subjects through media. So today, humans from different parts of the world are communicating and interacting with each other, having different resources with them. So, are we going to be equal one day?
I think the balance of power can change over time. Look at China and look at the development there and the financial power that is within that country, and what they do in terms of exports and information. I think the United States used to be the huge superpower that it may not be what it was in the past. I think that each country, depending on what is their most valuable export and what is their best natural resources, become powerful. I mean, we may not know what a product is in 10 years that's the most valuable product. So in Canada, we're very rich in natural resources. Oil, which we have not developed to the way of that the Middle East has. We're also big mining organizations, so we export a lot of that, and we also export a lot of produce and cattle and this. So those are always things that are going to be needed, but people are always seeking alternative ways to bring sustainability to the planet, and that can change at a moment's notice. I mean, there are certain areas that have weather that's impacted them and famine and these concerns. But given the right support and the right change of mindset, they may be able to pivot and become a much more stronger country in the future. So who's on top now may not be on top forever, and who's on the bottom now may be at the top at someday. It's your lifetime. You may see some huge change. My lifetime, I may not see so much change. I'm 61 years old. Time is running out.
So when you are working in your early days in media communications, uh, do you have a particular goal that with every word that I speak, I should change something on the planet? It can
No,
be for human beings or can be other species.
I wish I had that kind of huge goal. Um, I wanted to do a good job. I wanted to inform, entertain, uh, and just be myself. And I think I'm a pretty good person. So if I can positively impact someone anywhere, I've done a good job.
So what great qualities that you have that you think that worked for you all these years?
I'm outgoing. I'm a very good networker. So I meet and talk to people frequently. I'm not afraid to speak to people. I'm not afraid to have a discussion. Um, I'm friendly. I'm caring, and I'm loyal. So if you're my friend, you're always going to be my friend. Unless you stab me in the back. I'd rather someone come up and punch me in the face than stab me in the back. At least I see it coming. And very few people have crossed me, but occasionally people do, and I just shut them out of my life.
So, in the part of your profession, I'm sure you have exchanged information or words with different kinds of human beings and from different places and from different backgrounds and people who works in different industries. So, how if you one day you sit and think about different informations or the conversations that you had or the people that you met, uh, what do you think that life taught you as a communicator?
First of all, life is really short, and that time flies, and you need to appreciate things along the way. And I think if you live with your core values, then you take every meeting, relationship, network as a gift, and you're able to move ahead that way. I have been thrilled that over my career I've been able to meet people from all walks of life and all countries, and it's a treat. It's a treat. Whether I've been introduced to their culture and customs or their food, uh, it's an experience. I'm so glad I've been on this journey, and I hope to continue on this journey for still some time.
So me as a technologist working in technology, we are the professionals who are responsible to store the data in data centers in different parts of the world. And we don't know when the natural disasters happens. Don't know when the nature creates disturbance. But our responsibility is to give this information that is being stored in these big data centers in global. Uh, we have global infrastructure for all the technology companies. We are trying to give this to the next generation. So you saw a lot of generations in your life. So what do you say to the professionals who are responsible for this?
Well, I think that it's vital. Now, if you think back that this storage and backup and what I would call business continuity really has its roots back only 20 something years. You think that the big challenge around, especially around Y2K, when we went to the year 2000, there was a concern over the computers not being able to adapt to that. But that also forced companies to build redundancy sites and to find better ways to store their data and their information. 9/11 created even a more accelerated pace to that. So by the early 2000s, companies were finding that this was so important. Then with e-commerce and the movement towards the sort of the global marketplace, the movement of funds and money and information around the world became paramount to how we do things. So that's only going to continue. So the work that you do and the work that is embedded within that is so important. That said, the protecting the confidentiality of that information is also important, because there are people trying to defraud at all levels, major corporations down to the grandmother down the street who gets an email or something that's a phishing scam. So fraudsters, I always say that, you build a better mousetrap, the mice get smarter. And, we need to continue to be vigilant in our network security and the backup information, because it can make a company and it can break a company.
So as a person who lived who lived on this planet for 60 plus years, uh, so you saw the communication system and the networking that happens in between humans and the communication system that is being created by these human beings. So why only humans have this information transfer thing? But do you find, as a human being, do you found the same in other species as well? The other species transferring information to the next generations with whatever the technology that they have.
I think you always, no matter what you are, who you are, where you are, you learn from the previous generations. I mean, if you go back to the indigenous people of Canada and around the world, they would pass on their information from one generation to one generation through spoken word. The great philosophers and artists of the Renaissance period would drew on the previous the previous civilizations and all of that. So, sharing of information, whether it's by spoken word, whether it's by art, whether it's by culture, that gets passed down and along. And across any kind of platform or people, we will continue to pass that information along. I just like to be a storyteller and tell my own story rather than have someone have to research everything about it.
So what kind of research you need to do? I mean, you will do for presenting the information.
I think every person has a story. So I think it's really important to be able to document what you do and what you've done and the mark that you've left on the world. I'm trying to write a book to be able to pass that on. And it's not a book that I care if the world reads it. It's more that I want my sons and I want my grandson to understand how I became me and where I was with this. And I think that it's very important to be able to take a stock in what you are, what you've done, and what mark you've left. Because when you're gone, the only things left are the memories of you. So I always think of what my parents would have said or had said or what my grandparents had taught me. Uh, that's so important. And today, it's pretty easy to be able to document things, whether it's on, your computer files, YouTube, whatever. They get a flavor of who you are and what you've done. I mean, you're leaving a legacy yourself. You don't even realize this right now. 10 years from now, you'll look back at that, and everybody you've talked to, you've learned something. I hope you've learned something from everybody you've talked to.
So in your 60 years of life, do you have something that you never shared with anyone that you want to share now today?
Well, I always had a dream of being a professional athlete. And I played a lot of sports growing up. But, I was only 5'9", wasn't big enough to be, in certain sports that I really tried to excel in. And I always tried my best. And I always knew I was never very good. People might think I was much better than I was, but I wasn't very good. And I can admit that now, that, some people just have a knack for it. My passion was in writing. It was not being able to throw a ball further than somebody else. And I wish I had maybe practiced more about that. I also wish that, and I guess I haven't said this before either, I wish I had worked harder in school. I did well, and I have no complaints about my career. I probably would have gone the same way, but I should have embraced or appreciated that more than what I did. And I also, probably the biggest regrets I have is not being able to say bye to my parents one last time before they pass. That will always haunt me. And that's why you need to appreciate the people around you and tell them that on a daily basis.
So as an information provider, what medium you have reached more with the people? Is that writing or with your voice or with your visual?
I think it's a little of everything. I mean, everything is rooted in writing. So if I wrote it, I would usually say it, so it would be out there. But, when people Google me, they can find things I've done back 10, 20 years. So it's out there somewhere. So I kind of look at that as a bit of a legacy.
So which one you think that reaches more audience in the world?
Well, I think anybody's looking for information or doing research right now will always go to the internet. Will go to the web and search something. Whether you're looking for a service provider, whether you're looking for a person, whether you're doing some research. I mean, that tends to be the first go-to. If I'm quickly, commuting somewhere or I have time on my hands, that's when I look at Twitter first for that. But I don't think that has a huge impactful thing. That's probably impactful for, a few hours or a day. And then I have a YouTube channel where I post like travel videos when I've gone away and done things. And I get, thousands and thousands of views, and it's because I think I've provided information that people want to know about a resort or something that they want to go to. So, each platform has a different audience, and not everything you say goes to the same people.
So is it same saying the information of different subjects? Are you the same person?
Ooh. Yes and no. I think I'm the same person. I may be a little bit more casual on certain platforms and a little bit more professional on other platforms. When I'm reading news or I'm doing corporate communications work, I'm very professional, very friendly, but professional. When I'm on my Facebook or my Instagram, yeah, I'm a bit more casual and fun because I can be, and that never hurts. But yeah, each one is a little bit different, but it's the same person. It's just a little different way of presenting it.
So with your presence in this world, what kind of emotions you have created in people most of the time in your life?
Well, I hope I brought a smile to people's faces. I've always, worked in an environment where I've tried to bring some humor to it. I find humor in a lot of different things. I mean, sometimes the right humor, sometimes inappropriate humor, but I try to break the ice. I try to bring a little joke, a levity to a situation. People often get very stressed in certain situations, and if I can break the ice by making people feel comfortable, that may be a gift I have. I don't want people to feel uncomfortable. I always try to include people. Whenever I ran a meeting, I'd always go around the room and try to make sure I got the opinions of everybody, because we're all wired differently, right? There are some people who are extroverts, some people who are introverts, and it's harder for them to express themselves, and they may have great information that we need to hear. And I try to be encouraging. I've worked with young people. I have mentored. I have taught. I did a podcast where I would do a lot of interviews with students, and sometimes I was their very first interview, and that was rewarding to me because it helped them get confidence. And that's kind of where I look. I think I can bring people some peace of mind and confidence. That's why I think people continue to contact me, because I've always been open. I don't turn down many opportunities if I think that it's worthy and it's something that's going to help someone.
So history and geology is your favorite subjects. So the information that you have collected from these subjects, how that impacted your thinking process?
History is just the greatest. It's the greatest gift. It's like reading a book or watching a movie and seeing this play out in front of you, and this really happened. So I learned so much. I took Canadian history, European history, American history. I was in Paris a year ago. And I learned all about France and the French Revolution, and went to all sorts of locations where things had happened. But because I knew knew what had happened, it made that trip even more exciting, because I knew enough about the history to bring it all into perspective. I just wasn't going there as a tourist, not understanding. Going to the Louvre and seeing, wonderful masterpieces and paintings, and understanding who the artists were, and why they drew it, painted it at a certain time, and it just was incredible. And to be able to walk in certain places that had history. In Canada, our history is really 200 years. And not even that, 150, 160 years since our confederation. So you're really looking at people in this country back just more than 200 years. But in Europe, 500, 600,000 years, structures that are standing today that had their roots, 500 years ago. It's amazing. It's amazing. And I enjoy seeing that. And even the U.S. and all the talk there, really, it's just a 200-year-old country.
And as a person who is into media communications for a long time, what is your observation and your view about space communication?
Like space?
Yeah.
I think there's always been a fascination with it. I mean, I go back to being a young kid and listening on the radio, of all things, to the landing of the moon in 1969, Neil Armstrong, and watching the Apollo series, working in the radio station when the different space shuttles would go up, and being on duty the day that the Challenger exploded, and just the effect that had on people. I think that the fascination with space maybe has waned somewhat in recent years. I think that there's huge possibilities. I would love to see what's out in the great beyond. Whether they can do things and land on Mars, and I have an app on my phone that you can put up to the sky, and you can identify planets and stars. And a clear day, I'll go out and look up, and I'll say, well, there's Jupiter and there's Venus, and I just think that we have a universe that in the big picture is small, and I wonder what's out there. I just wonder if we're the only thing out there. Not that I believe in a UFO necessarily, but I've got to think the possibility that there's life somewhere else is always possible.
So, do you want to say anything to the people who are working for space thing like SpaceX or NASA?
I think they're incredibly intelligent people who are working with technology today that didn't exist 50 years ago. And what the guys did before them was amazing. And what they can do in the future is even more amazing. And I hope that they continue to make that a priority, and that our planet is our only planet, and we live here, and who knows what we need in the future to continue to live.
So, as a person who is the evidence of the history, you, as a person who is on this planet for a long time, who has an identity, who saw different things that with your eyes, with your senses, with all your senses, you have observed information, you have absorbed information. So, what is your belief? Do you think that we as a humans can able to establish communication between other planets?
I think they've tried. I think that there are things in place where they try to send signals out. I think you got to have a certain element of that is aware that you need to keep an eye on that. But so far we've heard nothing. So I don't know. But I wouldn't stop trying.
So
Part
at
of me
last,
wants to think that there's something out there. Part of me really wants to think that there's something out there, but I don't know. And maybe someday I'll be proved wrong.
definitely, I believe that you will see humans putting their leg on another planet in your life.
I hope so. That's so fascinating to me.
So, at last, what do you say about my communication, my global communication, and my platforms and my work?
I think you're doing a wonderful job. I think keep this up. I think you are helping to bridge areas. I think it helps you learn more about what's going on out there, and that it allows people to share their stories. So I think it's a wonderful thing that you're doing, and I wish you all the best for continued success.
So, as an experienced communicator, what do you think that, and what do you think, and how these global communication that I'm doing? I have communicated with more than 100 country people who are into different professions and who are into different parts of the world and who are working in different industries and who are into different age groups. Uh, so me trying to collect information from these people and what they are doing in their life and how they did things and how they solved different problems in their lives, collecting these experiences and putting on my platform and collecting all these experiences and putting in my head how I'm going to contribute this energy, this collection of information uh, to the big organizations who are working for the betterment of the planet.
Well, I think you need to take a look at what you've learned. I mean, you can simply put it down to a number of stories and things that you've learned, or life lessons that you've learned from people around the world, and things that give you those aha moments that you didn't think about before. And I think that all becomes part of a legacy that you can pass on. There are a few people that I know of that are trying to do what you're trying to do, bridging the gap to different people and cultures and professions. And you do it with such efficiency. Like you communicate very well and you pull things together. You certainly need to sit back and take a little stock and say, what have I really learned here? Or what is common everywhere around the world? So these are types of things that I think you could really do well with.
So if this video is stored in any data center or any storage device in the world, and after 60 years or 100 years, if this video is being watched, that valuable words that you want to convey to them.
I think what we do today is tomorrow's history. So be it as it may, whether it's here today, gone tomorrow, it'll never be gone.
So can I put this video on my YouTube channel with your permission?
Yes, you can.
Also, can I put this audio and video clip on my podcast, website, internet, social media, everywhere with your permission?
Yes, everything's fine.
Can you share social media to my audience?
I will. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll put on the screen also. I'll share in my website as well. People who finds my work and see the work that you're doing can learn from you, and also see book.
Wonderful.
Thank you again, Steve, for your valuable time.
Thank you so much, and have a great day.
You too, sir. Thank you.